Okay,
Alrighty.
terrific. We have a quorum. I'd like to call us to order. Does anyone have any updates for the agenda? Anything they'd like to add, modify? I'm assuming the agenda's all set then. The minutes of August 28th, that was actually the last time. Don't know if, do we have a motion to approve? Are there any changes to those?
Make a motion to accept.
Second,
All right, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, three of us. Brian, what's going on?
So we're deep into the operations manual for our application package. I'm somewhere around page 200 or so.
Oh, wow.
It's very, it's deep. I think our next move is here shortly. Nicole and I will kind of have an unofficial meeting with DEP to have them look at our site plan and give us an idea of what they think before we turn it in with the application.
Terrific.
That's about all I have.
All right. Public hearing on the select board on the 8th. That was the one that we were just in. That nobody said anything other than Alan, of course.
Did you remind him that trash doesn't cost the town anything?
And that's actually in the PowerPoint that we'll be going over soon. And if I had it loaded, I'd show it on the Zoom, but I don't. So I know you guys all have it. So the comments from the public. Now, the only public that we currently have on, we have one person from the public on. I don't know, iPad Martha, if you have any thoughts on, this is comments on the revised ordinance. Otherwise, I have received some comments separately, which I'll talk about in just a minute. All right, I'm assuming iPad Martha, if you do have any comments, feel free to add them.
No, I'm fine. I've just been following all the discourses on Facebook and trying to not stir the pot with all the misinformation that's out there and with Alan's actions. So here to support you guys if you need anything.
I appreciate that. We are actually, personally, I'm going to post something later after I talk to the group about it. So that may stir the pot, but it is what it is. I have received some comments. Let me pull them out. I had a conversation with Seth Berry, who actually he posted some stuff on Facebook, but was kind enough and actually, professional enough to reach out to me individually so that we could kind of talk through it and not just back and forth on Facebook. He does have a couple of tweaks to the ordinance, which are actually, I think they're pretty good tweaks. One is around dumping, where we wrote owner, occupant, tenant, leasee, or invitee of any property or so. So his comment was, what about out of towners? Should we have explicitly put out of towners in? Which may be a really good thing to put on. So people dumping, we've said, nobody can dump on their own property or other people's property in town, but did we overlook and should we be specific about out of towners? And I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just saying that was one of his. The other comment he had was around pesticides and agricultural waste. And it seems that some of the stuff that we tried to do by using the town's or the state's definition may have gotten conflated a little bit. So there may be a bit of an unintended consequence so that farmers are held to a standard that maybe they shouldn't be. And
I think there's,
I'm sorry.
I think there's a typo in the state definition where it talks about rinsing containers.
It may be, and I think that this is a really good issue for us to look at and to make sure that we're clear. And I mean, we have always said we in no way want anything to inhibit our Bodenham farmers, period. So anyway, there's nothing we can do about these suggestions at this point. I mean, it's going to be on the on the ballot, and it's going to pass or not. But one of the things, as I was talking to Seth, one of the things we didn't do with the old ordinance that we should do a little bit with the new ordinance is, if there's a tweak that needs to happen, because personally, I think we've done a really good job, but are there places we could maybe do a little improvement? Sure. So what I would like to suggest is that with this, and then maybe even reaching out, should in fact the ordinance pass, that we work, and it's not going to be a lot of work, just a couple of places, and ask a couple of people, make sure, maybe do some outreach to farmers themselves and make sure that we're all online, because again, we don't want to impact them. So should we actually maybe do some outreach and do a little bit of that? And then you can always make amendments during the next town meeting. So basically in 7 months' time, we could say, amend this particular thing to add the word, or to add out of towners, and however we would phrase that, and then within the pesticides thing, take a look at, is it the state? Have we conflated things, and has it gotten mixed up so that we're inadvertently impacting some, and how would we amend that language? And then putting those on, the town meeting site to actually do that kind of adjustment. So there's nothing that we can do at the moment. That said, ordinances should be living. The last ordinance we had, quite honestly, hadn't been touched in 30 years, which is one of the reasons we are where we are. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts and input. Does that make sense to you that we commit to, maybe doing a little reach out, taking these particular comments that were given to us, seeing if there's anything out there, seeing if there's a way that maybe we should tweak it. Personally, I think it's really good the way it is, but doesn't mean it couldn't be better with a tweak or two. So does that make sense to you guys, that what we would do once this, if it passes in November, we'd look to make amendments for the next town meeting. If it doesn't, then we can open it up again and make those tweaks now.
I think that's a good idea. Because if something comes out of the town meeting, if we find it now, we can take care of it at the town meeting. Where if we if we had waited until next town meeting, we'd have to wait another year.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yep. Fine.
Paul, sound good to you guys?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess the other thing I wanted to reiterate is what you were saying earlier is great to have an actual conversation with this stuff, as opposed to a public, what's the word I want to use here?
No, you don't have to use any words.
A social media discussion, which I've never seen anyone win. So it's great to hear that there was a kind of that one-on-one conversation to get some of those messages across. And I think those are both great points.
Yeah, and as Seth and I discussed this, because originally he was saying he thought that this might preclude him from supporting this. And as we discussed it, he was concerned that, and based on history, I get it. He was concerned that once it's passed, no one's going to touch it again. So by having this conversation and making the commitment that, particularly as it's new, that we go out and take a look at it and make these tweaks, he was starting to feel more comfortable. And certainly it would be great to have his support and anyone's support on, getting this done for November. So I'll make a note of that we are committed to look at both the 2 tweaks that he gave us, but maybe doing a little bit of outreach, seeing if there's anything else and putting it out as, amendments to hopefully a passed ordinance. Okay, the last thing on the agenda before I get into, or would you like to talk about social media and the piece that I passed on to you guys that I'm thinking of posting? Because we can do that real quick. It shouldn't take long.
Either way, were we also going to talk about cost this month as well?
Cost of,
Potential other options for garbage. I thought we,
yeah, that's
okay, yeah.
that's in the presentation, and there is one number, if you have it, for the option that you looked at would be good, and we can put that in the presentation. So do you want to do that one first then?
Either one.
We can, why don't we go do the presentation? We'll end up with that. So if you want to pull up what that presentation is, I'm going to walk through kind of my thoughts on how I got there, and then we can go through it. Do you guys both have it in front of you so you can?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, it started off, hold on. What I thought was trying to make a flow of it, starting off with what was the initial flow. In other words, what were we initially prepared to do? What were the things that we really wanted to do on there? Hold on one sec. There you go. So it was starting off with what the initial was, first the trash haul of the RFP, updating the ordinance, and then, what are the future options, which are there. So then I went through kind of how we went ahead and looked at it. So what was the approach we took? Talked about the surveying of 28 nearby towns, some of the questions that we asked. So starting off with what our charge was, then getting into kind of what we've done. Because honestly, I think the outreach that we did to those 28 towns, when I talked to, what was it, Energy Maine, I talked to somebody, they'd never seen any of that before, and they were really thrilled to get that, because I guess people don't do that much. Then I wanted to go into simply talk recycling first, and then trash, because then we build on the trash model on that. So each of them, I just went through, what we found in that. In the recycling, talked about how supported it was. And then, in each of these talked about what the negative impact was. Because we've gotten pushback on people don't use recycling, I reiterated the numbers that Brian had given us a while ago. So that people can see that, not only have people say they support it, but people actually use it. Then went into some stuff, and all of these have citations on it, kind of on why recycling is important. Just kind of stats, both from the state of Maine and general. Sorry. So that was that side. Recycling continued. Then just reiterating some other stuff. A lot of these are from presentations we've done before. Continual focus on cost savings, talking about the compactor, talking about evaluating the cost of the roll-off truck, which I think we had talked, which would eliminate the need for us. And this is where, Brian, you can kind of help if you want to add something, unmute, and then just, if you're good, give us a thumbs up. But the roll-off truck, if I understood it, would eliminate our need to have Casella actually haul it down there.
Correct.
So, great. And then wanted to talk about, because it just doesn't get enough publication, is the state's EPR program, which is going to start reimbursing towns for, that have recycling programs. So just talking about recycling, and on the couple of slides before, it talked about what the negative impacts were on recycling. So, increased trash costs, disproportionate financial impact for citizens of lower means, which we did those numbers a while ago. Then any questions or thought on the recycling pieces or slides? And the thought is that this is going to be kind of although we just talked about, we'll update the ordinance and work on that. For the most part, our work is done. So this is kind of summary of everything to the select board. Here you go. Here's what we're going to work on in the future, which is just, making tweaks that need to be. And that's why I've initially put a date on this of the select board meeting after the election. So we'll have a new select person. So it will be some education there, but it will be kind of a wrap up and just reiterating what the programs are for everyone else. Bodenham's, anyone on the recycle, anything that you think we should add, didn't add, change?
Not here. After we get through with this, I've got a couple thoughts I'd like to raise about recycling.
Oh, okay, great. Then we're going into the trash piece. Showed some of the satisfaction. Now that satisfaction was from the Facebook survey we did. Talked about plumber and kind of how we're doing. Talked about how the program is funded on the pay-as-you-throw at a self-sustaining rate. And as we talked to many towns subsidize that, and Bodenham is meant, even in the old ordinance, it was meant for the tags to be pretty self-sustaining. And I mean, I know they're within a neighborhood right now. I think they're a little less than self-sustaining. In previous years, they've been a little more than self-sustaining. So they're always going to be in a margin, but that's it. And then negative program. And that's where I come into the pieces. I think Paul Tabor, I could just say Paul, it's both of you guys, was raising about how as the program is funded at pay as you throw, there are no tax savings to eliminating that program. Then talked about private dumpsters are, more expensive and require citizens, including elderly and disadvantaged, to figure it out for themselves. I still very, very much remember how during one select meeting, Alan Acker just went like this: town can just wipe their hands of all programs. That's it. We don't have to worry about it. And then he looked over at Brian and the two women that work for him and just said, sorry about that, meaning you're losing your job. So it is infuriating that kind of stuff goes on. And then lastly stated, the state law says you have to do something. Then I got into the models that we had. Casella, I mean, this is a no-go, but this is stuff that we've all talked about. Cost increases, not able to use pay-as-you-throw, 5-year contract, change disposal back to Casella, which is, we just changed to something to save money and we'd have to eliminate that. The next one was bringing the curbside collection in-house, which, then talking about some of the things that would have to happen, including, hiring the employees. Although this program is more fiscally, we could do it fiscally, there are a lot of hurdles and difficulties that we have to face through it, particularly, getting the trucks, getting the personnel, keeping the personnel. So it would be, that one would be difficult. Then the transfer drop-off station. Paul, this is the one that you wrote. And one thing I didn't see, and I put down, we require one-time capitalization of compacting dumpsters. And I didn't know if you had, excuse me, any numbers on what that might be. I didn't see it in the stuff, and it could just be me that I missed it. But what is approximate cost of, capitalization of compacting dumpsters if we have people bring their trash over to the transfer station? Did you have that number? You're on mute,
There we
Paul.
go. I realized that as soon as I did it. Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. One is I think the number that you're using in here was the old number, quote unquote, pre-calibrated. Before, oh no, I take that back, 217. That does match. So I did not look at compacting dumpsters, nor did I look at in-house transportation, i.e. if piggybacked with a roll-off truck that Brian or that you mentioned earlier. Because if you look at the total costs, transportation costs are 2/3 of the total cost
Yeah, I thought the
in that.
transportation was in the 217, but the compacting dumpsters, in other words, where people would have to put it. I didn't think that was in. I was pretty sure that I may be wrong.
No, I did not look at a compacting dumpster or if a truck was got for recycling. So
Yeah.
those are both flavors that were not evaluated here.
And that's okay, because the 217 includes somebody coming to pick it up. So the transportation costs, if I remember correctly, are in the 217, but the compact dumpster is not. So what did we pay for that one we had for recycling? Assuming they'd be about the same. What was that? Was that
They are
30?
they are the same. It was about $13,000.
13. All right.
And would we need two?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's certainly an option. I think with that, when you start talking about leaking containers and that all has to be contained.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're gonna have to put it on concrete. And there's some other, issues that would have to be looked at too. Where if you just took a 40-yard dumpster and everybody just threw their bags in that would be a cheaper option.
Okay.
You would probably just have to transport it a little bit more than you would compacting.
What does a regular dumpster cost, not compacting?
I've seen them advertised from 1,000 to 5,000, depending on condition.
Can I hit in the middle and say about 3K?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. And the compact, that's my error that I put compacting down. So thank you very much for that. I'll change that. It'll just say dumpsters. It'll just say dumpsters, approximately 3,000 each, and we may need a couple.
Yeah, a couple, because I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as you fill one, you're gonna empty it anyways.
Yeah, but
So
you'll have
really,
couple- Yeah.
you would only need two.
Yeah, okay. Got that. I'll make that change. The next slide talks about the money pieces of it. The Casella, I kind of backed into with their numbers. I actually, the first time I came up with them, it was like $13 a tag. Backing into it a different way, I came up to this $9.90, almost $10 a bag. Whatever method we use to get to it, quite honestly, it's a non-starter. The current vendor, I used when we went to the select board with what self-sustaining trash tags would be, it came out right in the middle at 313. So that's the number that I used, and that's where that number came from. The in-house, I did all the figures, and as you can see, it's a little bit less, but there are the barriers to that, I think, make that a non-starter. The barriers being, again, as we talked about, first off, the capitalization, if we just get one truck, what was that? I think that was about $50,000. So the capitalization jumps in there. And the hiring and the employment pool is really difficult. I did make in the slide talking about that, I did talk about possible being able to, have an employee that gets shared with public works somehow, but that's hiring. And then what you've got is you've hired a full-time employee, and that puts a benefit load on it. So that makes it more expensive as well. And I think we've talked through all of this. But if there are any thoughts on, anything in the way it's laid out in the slide, by all means. And then the last slide was just talking about, first off, plumber has indefinite, and I'll just say, I'm going to take indefinitely out because I'm not sure. I mean, they've postponed their estimated retirement date. Great. So we can stay where we are. And just say we recommend staying with them for the foreseeable future, and review financials each year. And then recommend when that arrangement is no longer there to evaluate changing the model to the transfer station drop-off model that we discussed, resulting in a decrease. And then just made the note onto that should we go with that, we would ask for I guess they changed the title, but now they've got a full-time rec director who does some senior stuff, to explore volunteer assistance so that elderly and disabled and somebody else would have to do that, obviously, but strongly recommend that community or that person be tagged with developing some kind of a volunteer program that will help elderly by picking up their trash, or helping disabled that, pick up their trash. So that was the thought on, just kind of a wrap up to select board in a way that will provide information to the new select board members, will be very clear on, discontinuing these programs is not a good idea, and, very clear on, a path forward should we ever be in a place so that we've got the road paved, that if plumber really does retire at some point, and, if his son's not taking over, he's not getting any younger. It'd be great if his son did take over because his son's young, and that's great. But, if he doesn't take over, we just may not be able to do anything. So I know, Paul Tabor, you said you had a couple of thoughts, and I would love.
Well, first, just a question, how many seats are open on select board? I just saw one candidate.
Yeah, just one. Deb is coming off, and there's a new guy. I don't know him. I met him once, but he hasn't been in town.
Now, my thought about recycling was, I wonder if it would make any difference if we posted, we meaning you, Brian, the income from the cardboard and scrap metal, have it posted right there, so that every time, a load goes out, we can say, okay, how often does a load go out roughly?
Of cardboard?
Yeah,
Well, I hold it for pricing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a really good point, Paul. Brian, if you could just send me an email with, the most recent annual figure you have for income we've made off of metal and cardboard, that'd be great. And I can.
Yeah,
put it
that's all in my revenues, so it's all documented.
Do you have it? Is that in the town? I don't remember seeing it, but that's just me. If you have it easily and can just shoot me a note with what it is.
Yeah, I don't have it with me.
Okay, where would I find it?
You could go to the town office and just ask Kelly for a copy of my revenues. Or Nicole. You could actually send Nicole an email. Or I can send Kelly an email and.
Yeah, tell you what, if you don't mind, send Kelly an email, copy me into it, and then just ask her to shoot it to me. That way she's got my email address. And if you don't mind doing that, that'd be terrific. And that's a really good catch, Paul. We'll put that in.
I think right now I'm at about $3,000, $3,500, something like that, for this fiscal year. So we're a third of the way into it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if posting it, making it visible would encourage people to separate.
Right.
And then my other question was, should we encourage people to separate their tin cans and throw them in the metal truck?
Grimmel's does not want tin cans in the metal.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
we used to do that. And they encouraged it, and then we found out that it was just falling through their machines and making a mess underneath the conveyors, and so now they don't want it in there at all.
Okay.
Casella separates out tin cans and bales them.
They bale it, yes.
Is there a market for that?
I'm sure there is, yeah.
Do we have storage space to,
Well, we would have to create storage space for it.
yeah,
And we would have to set up another baler.
And I wonder if Casella, if they're taking advantage of that market, whether that's reflected in their pricing, which it may be, their pricing may be discounted some, you know, over their cost. It's maybe their cost of doing it net, whatever they get. I don't know. But that's what normal pricing would do.
Right.
So-
I believe all of their aluminum and tin cans goes to Alabama or Louisiana, somewhere down there.
Yeah. Okay,
But I would have to have a dedicated machine for that.
yeah,
I wouldn't be able to swap product from, you know,
right.
in the same machine. I would have to have a dedicated machine. Same with plastic. If we were to go into bale plastic, I'd have to have a dedicated machine.
And I'm not
Especially with plastic, because plastic has memory to it, so you have to leave it compressed for a while.
Yeah,
and I don't think the market, I mean, we've looked before, the market isn't that great for it, is it?
I haven't looked at the market in a couple months now, and it,
Yeah, okay, I doubt it's gonna change that much in a couple of months. So thoughts on, just in general, I mean, making the tweaks that we have, and certainly waiting until after the election day, because this deck right now does say that the ordinance passed, so if it doesn't, I'd have to make a little change there. But your thoughts on doing this presentation to the select board, and your thoughts on, you know, is there, other than the tweaks, you know, Paul, that you made good tweaks, you know, anything else?
Just one question / comment I have is on the
Yeah.
last bullet of the last slide here.
Okay.
Do we just generally want to recommend having that option as a contingency no matter what? We're kind of recommending to evaluate changing the model, but right now we are beholden to a single supplier, and if something ever does happen to that supplier, you know, could be anything, a car accident, trucks breakdown, whatever
Right.
it happens to be. So do we want to recommend just having a contingency plan in place for that? Should we have a transfer of station license?
Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons that we're pushing so hard to get that license, is so that we've got that. And that gets to what I'm gonna post on Facebook. It talks about being prepared for the future. So
so oh, go ahead. I kind of have a backup plan already in place.
Oh, is that in the
That's
200
using-
pages?
Well, yeah, it's not in there yet, but I'm somewhere around 200 pages into that thing. Because we're allowed to hold municipal solid waste on site for 2 days,
Yep,
we could just throw everything in a dump truck, hold it, and then take it on Monday or whatever and dump it. It's
But I'm
not the greatest plan, but it is workable.
well, that's
Yeah.
kind of the equivalent of bringing it in-house, which I don't think is a long-term plan, but could be. You'd have to find employees to actually, I don't know whether you can hire temps to,
Right, well, that's just a backup plan. I mean, worst
Yeah.
case scenario, I mean, plumber, well, I won't use names, but whoever holds the contract for the town has to, you know, honor the contract.
yeah,
So if they have a truck that breaks down, then they need to worry about that. They need to find a replacement or whatever.
go to U-Haul.
Yeah, there you go.
Paul Dennis, yes, I do like, and that last bullet, I can reword that to say as contingency, and we do say when current vendor no longer viable.
Yep.
Instead of saying evaluating, just saying, I don't know, maybe potentially changing. Or just maybe changing model to transfer station drop-off model. So just take the words to evaluate out? Or is
Yeah.
that not?
I think that gets the point across.
Okay. I can do that. And it just says when arrangement is no longer viable, which could be not viable for many reasons. He could retire, he could, you know, whatever. Anything else on this deck? I'll make the tweaks that we talked about. And again, keep it in our back pocket to after the election day and we see how the ordinance goes, because I'll have to tweak it there. But does it make sense to you guys to, you know, do a presentation, you know, one of the first select meetings, and I put the 19th, which I think is one of the first select meetings after the election.
It might make sense to, with the presentation, maybe push back to December, because the first 2 weeks that
Okay.
new select board member is going to be, my guess is it'll be a fire hose. I don't know that. I'm just guessing for somebody to get up to
No,
speed with everything.
Been there, done that. It wasn't, it didn't take that long, but I was at a different time, so you know, we can put it off and, you know, maybe first meeting in December, it's fine.
First select board meeting for December is December 10th.
Yeah, I'm not in town, guys. Sorry.
That's their first meeting of the month.
The next one would be the 24th. I'm
That's
assuming.
not
Yes.
gonna happen.
So
And
yeah,
that'll get canceled, I'm sure.
yeah.
I apologize. Maybe November is not a bad thing. I apologize, but I'm not here on the 10th,
Yeah, that's fine.
on the 24th. So are we okay?
26th.
Fire hose. Like I said, I've been through it. I didn't find it that bad, but I don't know what the new guy is, you know, what he's, you know, I had some background that made it a little easier to digest. I don't know what his background is. He may be fine.
First select board meeting for November is the 12th. And then the 26th.
Oh, I thought their first was okay.
With the new guy.
All right, so then do we want to do maybe the 26th? That's close to it. Close to December.
So our meeting would be on the 27th then.
Yeah.
Their meeting is on the 26th.
Does the 26th, that's the week after Thanksgiving too, I think, isn't it?
No, it's before.
Thanksgiving week.
It's the Tuesday before.
And our meeting, the day before Thanksgiving, I think I'm thinking that we may not be meeting the day before Thanksgiving. We got, but does the 26th work for you guys?
Yeah.
November 26th? Okay.
Where are we gonna hold it? Because they'll be having their select board meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm saying we present this to the select board on.
Oh,
their-
okay, yeah.
Not us. We present it to them in their meeting on the 26th.
Yeah, I don't have their agenda yet, but
What time do they meet?
6:30.
We should probably give Nicole a heads up and make sure we get on the agenda.
The 26th.
Can you do that, Brian, or do you want me to
Yeah,
do that? Okay.
I can do it, you can do it, but I can't do it this week.
I don't care, as long as we get on the 26th, I don't care when you talk to her.
Okay.
That gives whoever the new guy is, they'll come in on the 5th. So that gives them actually 3 weeks because it's effective on there. So they essentially have 3 weeks to catch up. So hopefully that works. Any other thought on that presentation? Again, there's some tweaks to make. Brian, if you'll send that note to Kelly, I'll put a placeholder in there of approximately $3,500. Annual revenue approximately $3,500.
Oh, that's not annual. That's just what I'm at right now at this point.
Oh, for this fiscal year?
Yeah,
All right, we're halfway through the fiscal year, so annual should be, if you could ask Kelly, we're looking for an annual figure, I think.
yeah, I
Um,
think, in my budget last year, and I don't have any of my documents in front of me. But
Top
I
of your,
think I
yeah.
budgeted for somewhere around 8,000.
All right, then if you could just send the note to Kelly and ask her to verify, I'll put the placeholder in at about 8,000. And that was a good catch.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody have anything else? Because the only thing I have left is, I was just gonna ask you, you guys thought on that piece I sent you earlier. It's, I hate, it's too long, really. But I wanted to be thorough and cut off what we needed to cut off.
Yeah, that was my only concern, that it is,
It is
I
long.
don't know if people will read all the way through it.
Oh, I know a couple people that will read all the way through it.
Well, yeah. And that was gonna go on the Bodenham Town Forum.
Yeah, because that's where all the other
Yeah.
stuff is happening. And I can just give highlights as opposed to reading it all if that works for you, or if you guys are good with what you've already seen. Again, this is not particularly committee business because I'm doing it as an individual, so it's a little more, but I mean, you guys have been great, so any thoughts that you have are terrific. Do you want me to just give a real quick overview? Or you want to just,
I haven't read it yet, so I don't have any comments.
Yeah,
let me give a real quick overview then. I started off introductory paragraph. Well, first put a title, please vote yes. Introductory paragraph was just talking about how there's been a recent post talking about how, we've never done it this way before, but we've never done it this way before. And so just talking about how, I realize it's a change, but change is not necessarily bad. And then I go on to say, outline the things that I'm trying to outline in the post. That's why the ordinance is on the November ballot, the process we went through to develop it, why people should vote next, what happens next, and then thoughts on a transfer station, since the transfer station has been just a bugaboo out there. So why the ordinance is on the November ballot. Talked about how we were given the directive to have it ready for the 2024 town meeting, and we were on track to have that happen. It was going to be at a town meeting. However, the select board and town manager, we were told that they thought the agenda was too full and they asked us not to take it out. So then I go through great deal of discussion on the committee as to why then select election day. Talked about that it was more representative because more people are going to be voting on presidential election than not. Talked about, and I made this point a couple of places, respect for the law. I went back and looked at some of the selectmen's comments, and basically they don't care that we're breaking the law. I mean, some of them do, but they don't care that we're breaking the law at all. So I talked about respect for the law, and then when we were presenting to them, we actually outlined to them that there's a risk of not doing this. People could take the town to task and say, we want you to follow this, and that's a financial risk. Because all of a sudden, if we were to adhere to that, we would have to start picking up recyclables again. And we would have to start recycling glass where there's no market, and it would add weight and it would cost us more money. So those are just a couple of things that would cause that. Now, there's a risk. I think the probability on that risk is very low, but it still is a risk. So it's, respecting the law. There wasn't a really good reason to postpone for the other 7 months. Talking about how many citizens have already taken advantage of putting it in. I also made the point because the previous post talked about how the land use ordinance, there was a lot of discussion at town meeting. I remember that discussion. The land use ordinance is over 250 pages long, and it suggested a lot of changes. So comparing an 8-page ordinance that has no change in our processes at all to a 250-page ordinance that has drastic changes in it is really a false equivalency. I mean, it's not really a valid argument. So went on to talk about that. Then went over briefly how the ordinance was developed, the public input. There were some comments how the Facebook survey was not robust enough. So I made the point that we did very much rely on the 2020 survey done by the prior committee, that we did research, that we did more research, that we created many iterations of them, discussed, redrafted, more public input, and talked about, got, input from Bodenham residents, reviewed, made changes based on those comments, took the changes to legal for review, then repeated that whole process because we did that more than once, and then got select board input and the select board made changes. And then why vote yes? Respect for the law, supports the current town stuff, does not look to increase costs for our current processes anyway, and provides flexibility. And then up next, I talked about, ordinances need to be living documents. We did really well, but hey, there are a couple of things that maybe we should change. And how the committee is committed to help that happen when we hear about those things. And then just talked a little bit about the transfer station, talked about how we're already there. It hasn't cost anybody any tax money at the moment. Really the process we're going through was stuff that was already in the budget. We were able to just do it under budget. And then anything that we would have to do in the future, if it impacts the budget, it's up for town vote. So it's in their hands. And that the transfer station provides us flexibility for future needs. And the licensing process, I talked about that, the licensing process can take up to a year. So it only makes sense to be prepared now. So that was basically it. Like I said, unfortunately, it's too long. I've just read too many of these posts that are throwing mud without backup to it, and I wanted to make sure there was backup. I know Paul Tabor, you've read, I know Pat read it, and he said he was good. I thought Pat's comments back, he did a really good job at staying as neutral as he could on it, on the original post that was dissing the whole thing. Any thoughts? Because I'll post it probably after our meeting.
Well, like you said, the people who make the comments are the ones who are most likely to read it all the way through, so.
Yep, and I'm sure there'll be more comments, but like last time when I jumped in, and I don't often jump in, but I did jump in on some of the comments last time on Facebook. I was able to bat down most of it. They went on and I just said, thank you for your opinion, and stopped it. I don't think that went over too well, but oh well. All right, I will post that again. That's coming from me personally, so that you guys, but if you're on there and happen to see comments coming and want to jump in, go for it. Our next meeting. I'm just looking at our next meeting is standard meeting. What is it? Is it the 13th? We could meet the 13th and, take one last shot at that deck. I don't know that we'll have much else. We could start talking about some of the comments for amendments. We'll know at that point whether or not the ordinance passed. Does the 13th sound, should we go ahead with that?
13th works for me.
Yeah,
Paul?
I'm looking at a calendar now.
Honestly, I don't think that meeting is going to be long.
I am tied up until 6:30 that day.
We can change the time if that's not putting too much pressure on you, Paul. We could change the time to 6:30.
Sure.
All right.
it's okay.
Sounds like it'll be short and sweet anyway.
I really think it will be. I think most of our meetings are gonna be short and sweet, and the meeting after that's the 27th, which I'm gonna say right now, shouldn't happen.
Yeah, I guess that's, I mean, what's next? I guess that's so we have some potential amendments to the
Yep.
ordinance if passed, and
If
I
it
guess
doesn't,
what's next?
well, if the ordinance doesn't pass, then we'll amend it, the full ordinance, and get that up for town meeting. If it passes, we'll do the amendments. So there's that. And just as an FYI heads up, there's a very good possibility I will not be at town meeting. My husband wants to drive to Alaska, so I'm at town meeting. So if we can get it passed and it's only amendments, that'd be great. So we've got that. And then the only really thing we have that we've talked about after is, can we do some communication help? So any amendments that would come up to there, but we talked about, and I would highly recommend this, that once we maybe address any amendments that need to happen to the ordinance, that we put ourselves on a standard only quarterly meeting or ad hoc, which we would ask Brian if anything comes up, or Nicole, if anything comes up, send us a note and we'll do ad hoc. But going forward on that, communications, which quite honestly, Brian, I could work with you directly and we could talk about, are there ways to improve communications? I don't know, we need the full committee on that. And then, that quarterly or ad hoc. Then, I mean, if there's something else, great, but I'm just, and we'd be amenable to it. I'm just not seeing it.
That's why I was asking, because I don't see a whole lot in the
No.
future either.
No.
Do we know, do we know the wording on the ballot for November?
The ballots are out, so I'm sure
Oh,
off
it's,
the top. Yeah, I mean,
okay, yeah.
they're voting right now, so.
Hold on a second, I should be able to bring up the ballot.
It's usually pretty simple.
They
Yeah.
should have one posted. Absentee. Election. Oh, yeah, I'm not seeing it. I thought they had one posted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
I think,
I was just wondering if it had any language in there, for the town meeting. It usually says selectmen recommend.
no, wouldn't have that on the ballot.
Yes.
Would not
I
have
was
that.
wondering if it said anything about, do you want to approve the solid waste ordinance as recommended by the select board?
Don't think it says that. We'll find out when we vote.
Yeah. No. Whatever it
Alright.
says, we can't change it.
Yeah. All right, anybody have anything else?
Oh, 1 second, I found a sample ballot.
Oh, okay, great.
That's not it. Okay. So the way the ballot reads is, shall an ordinance entitled Solid Waste Management Ordinance be enacted, repealing and replacing the town's solid waste ordinance of 1994? Yes or no?
Okay.
So it's
Thanks,
pretty basic.
Yeah, those things usually are.
I appreciate the wording is straightforward.
Right.
There's no double negatives in there, which I appreciate.
Yeah. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make
Motion,
that motion. Second.
second.
All in favor? All right, terrific. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, see you November 13th,
See you
Yep.
November 15th.
6:30.
6:30. Yeah.
I'll put
Okay.
that out in the agenda that comes at that time.
All right, if you could send me the approved minutes when you
I'll
get the
do that.
opportunity.
Will do. Will do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Yep,
you.
see you,
Right.
Martha.
Okay.
Good night. Yeah, we don't see you, Martha.
See, stop recording.